Please welcome Senator Tim Scott. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Senator Scott.
How are you?
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you here. It's very rare that Republicans drop in when they are still in office and not like on their way out. This is fun. No, it really is, because you know you've always been somebody who comes on the show and we talk about everything, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
This time is a little different.
Yes.
You've written a book about your life, and honestly, there's a lot in this book that I didn't know about you as a human being. You know, and let's start in the beginning.
Certainly.
In many ways, the book talks about your journey of how you got to where you got to today.
Absolutely.
You know, many people have referred to you as many different things. The unicorn, you know, the lone black senator in the Republican Party. People have referred to you as the outlier. But what's really interesting in the book is you talk about how you got there with family who were also Democrats. Talk me through that experience of, you know, what it was like being in a family where people were voting differently.
Absolutely. Well, I think the most important part of my story really is the devastation of divorce, being raised by a single mom who worked 16 hours a day, 3 days a week, and 8 hours a day, 2 days a week as a nurse's aide, just changing bedpans and enrolling patients. So seeing my mother work her butt off to try to keep food on the table, and then moving in with my grandparents, my grandfather born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina,
Yeah.
Having to get off the sidewalk when white folks were coming. Just the humiliation and the devastation that he experienced, and that passed down to my mother, and then it impacted me too. Sometimes we forget to tell both sides of the story when we're having conversations. I wanted to make sure that people had a full perspective of my journey to becoming who I am, because much of it was built on the shoulders of people who paid a very high price for you and I to have this conversation. And sometimes we forget to say thank you to those who went before us.
Right. On the shoulders of giants. I mean,
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting that you say telling all sides of the story, because you talk about your father very early on in the book.
Yes.
And what I appreciate is how you talk about the negative impact he had on you, but you appreciate all of the positive as well. You talk about how he comes back from fighting a war for America.
Yes.
And yet America doesn't want him. People spit at him. He doesn't get treated as a first-class citizen. What impact did that have on you growing up knowing this?
You know, I learned a lot more about my father's story while I was writing the book. Truly, to tell you the truth, my father and I was not close for about 30 years.
Right.
After the divorce, we went in separate ways, and it was in my late 20s, early 30s when I first started getting back with him. Truth is that the more I understood about the pain and the misery and the devastation that happened during the Vietnam conflict for him, as well as coming back as a black Vietnam veteran.
Right.
Very, very, very painful experience. And then the altercations that he had with other members of the service just because he was black, and how that painted and stained him, and how that caused him to spiral some. And being the recipient of that, you see it differently. As you grow older, you get 20/20. Looking backwards. And so my father is now a good man, a solid man that I have much respect for. And having walked that journey together has made me such a better person. And it gives me a perspective that I would not have had I not taken the time to listen. Because sometimes when we go through pain and suffering, we put our finger towards a person we think caused us that pain, and we literally turn our backs. I think sometimes the best thing we can do is listen, even to the people we feel like hurt us. There's a scripture in Matthew 5:44 says to love your enemies, to pray for those who persecute you. And I got to say that South Carolina, we've had more than our share. And I talk about Mother Emanuel Church shooting.
Right.
Those amazing people forgave the killer, the racist, who walked into the church, sat through a Bible study. And when you hear stories like that, and you understand the magnitude of their power to bring light into a dark place, the least I could do is learn to listen to people who may disagree with me.
You've always done that. You know, you've always had conversations with people you don't agree with. You've often faced criticism as well. You know, many people have said, how can you be a black man in the Republican Party? Look at what the Republican Party is doing. Look at the policies that the Republican Party enacts. And some people haven't said it to you in the nicest way. You talk in the book about how people called you Uncle Tim when you responded to the president's address. how do you reconcile, that narrative, or how do you reconcile the conflict of being a black man
Yes.
in a party that is predominantly white, and black people are predominantly Democrats, and saying no, I can still believe in this and not be, a race traitor, which I don't believe in any way, but I'm.
Well, Trevor, well, breaking news here. You ready?
I'm ready.
I think the black community is a conservative community. So I think I'm just being consistent with who I am. Let me give you a couple of examples of policy positions that I think most people don't understand or appreciate or have ever even heard, that while we were in the majority, from 2016 to 2020, we invested more money in historically black colleges and universities than any other time in American history. We made the funding for HBCUs permanent for the first time in American history. We put $1 billion in the middle of the pandemic, specifically targeting HBCUs. My office, we led the charge on sickle cell anemia research and passed legislation to make sure that it would be easier. Unemployment, 2016 to 2020, we had the lowest unemployment in the history of the country for African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, a 70-year low for women. We created 7 million jobs, 2/3 were African Americans and Hispanics. So my point is that when you think about the policy positions that I have fought for, not to even talk about opportunity zones, the fact is that as a sitting conservative Republican, I fought for those issues that had the greatest impact in the communities where I come from, because it's like common sense.
But here's the thing that I find interesting, and by the way, you're not an outlier in doing this. I find it interesting to see how American politicians choose to measure time or effect, because what you said was true. The 2016 to 2020, there was a man by the name of Barack Obama who was president up until 2016, and as you know, in economics, effects can take a while, right? You've heard of the name, right?
Yes.
Right. And so and so here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't think I'm, we've had conversations. I'm not accusing you of betraying anybody. I'm not accusing you of that. I think sometimes what becomes confusing for people is how it seems like the Republican Party and conservatives at large seem to have an idea of, victimhood. Let's put it this way. So I'll see people saying, oh, we're sick and tired of people talking about racism. That's over. We're sick and tired of people talking about oppression. That's over. Minorities need to, right? Yeah. But what it seems like, and you'll tell me how you see it, is it seems like oftentimes in order for people of color to be accepted into the Republican Party, they have to ignore all of the systemic things that happen to them in the country. And then the people who are in the Republican Party go, we're the victims, we're the real people being oppressed, we're being replaced, we're being oppressed, this is what's actually happening because we are white. And I find that, do you not find that there's a weird disparity at times?
I hear what you're saying, but can I point out one thing?
Of course.
Do y'all mind? Don't ask a question you don't know the answers to the people you don't know. My bad. In my book, one thing you'll learn very quickly, I don't sidestep the issue of race at all.
You don't. That's why I said with you, I agree with that.
And, and I talk about the 20 plus times that I've been stopped in the last 2 decades for just driving while black. I talk about the race riot that happened at the high school I was going to attend when I was in the 8th grade. I talk about the challenges that so many people in our community has faced because of the color of our skin. I talk about the economic realities. I talk about the justice system. I work, as you know, on police reform. So the truth of the matter is that I think you have to be comfortable in your own skin, wherever you are. And if you have to betray or deny a part of your existence, don't do it. And I refuse to allow any party affiliation to stop me from being what I'm going to be when I leave and what I was before I came.
And you do that, I will say, you do that honestly. You do that honestly beyond just black. You talk about this in the book, for instance. You were one of the senators who said Donald Trump, in trying to overturn the election, what he did was unconstitutional. You talk about January 6th. I feel like even in the book, when you're telling the story of January 6th, you do a really good job of placing the blame at the feet of the people who conducted the insurrection. It seems like there is a looming absence, though, it's a glaring absence of Trump's name in it. It seems like at times you are, you know, and I don't mean it in a bad way at all, but it seems like you are trying to thread the needle, you know, of saying what happened, but then not saying why it happened.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Now, tell the truth. Praise the Lord. Yes. I like that. So it is called the Daily Show with Trevor Noah and not Tim Scott. So
right.
I assume the audience is going to go with you. I'm being funny. I'm being funny.
No, I'm with you.
I mean, I know you're a comedian. I'm trying my best, you know. I'm working. Give a brother a break, right?
I'll give you all the breaks. You know that. You know that. Yes.
But here's my point, though. I was actually in the building.
And you talk about it in the
rolling my sleeves up, preparing to fight for my life.
Right.
So when I put the blame on the people who were coming after me, I put the blame squarely where I believe it belongs. And that's what you hear in my recount of the issue. When I say that at the end of that day on January the 6th, we, the United States Senate, both Republicans and Democrats, went back out and performed our duty to affirm that President Biden has won the election, we did our job. So I'm not actually sugarcoating or skirting or pivoting away from an issue. I'm actually not making it more political than it has to be.
But then let me ask you this.
Certainly.
Okay. Many people have floated the idea, and I'm not asking about everybody. As my mom would say, I'm only asking about you right now. I would like to know then, if you were asked to run as Donald Trump's vice president, would you accept that?
It's a good question. I was. I'm going to pivot.
At least you're honest. Okay. At least you're honest.
So, let me tell you what here's the truth. When you're up for re-election to the United States Senate, the first goal is to win. So once you win, then you look at the options that are left and make a decision on what is possible. And so for me, at this point in my career, the only thing I'm asking for are the people in South Carolina to give me a chance to be reelected.
Right, and they do love you. You served your state well. You know, you talk about your beginnings in the book, and you talk about the commitment that you have to your country, and people admire it in the way that you've served, whether they agree with you or not. Talking about South Carolina, though,
yes, sir.
I would love to know how you see the state and its positioning as it pertains to some of the issues facing America today. One of the biggest being abortion. For many, many years, people said Roe v. Wade was settled. Roe v. Wade was settled. People saw the Supreme Court flip in a way that some senators even felt betrayed. You know, I won't ask you to comment on the Supreme Court, but what I will ask you to comment on is South Carolina as a whole. Right now, many senators, many lawmakers have said it's up to the states. Let the states decide. We see states are starting to decide, Kansas, Indiana, etc. South Carolina has a bill that is being discussed that would prohibit people from giving women information on getting an abortion, even if they were to do it in a state that did decide to still have it. So where do you stand on that issue then?
Well, I'll say I have not read the legislation because I'm a United States senator, not a state senator, so I don't have the information to answer.
No, I agree. I understand you don't want to comment on something, but then even
not that I think I'm going to ever satisfy your audience on this issue.
No.
Don't get me wrong. But the truth is, though, that you're asking me about a bill I have not even seen, nor have I.
So then let me ask you. Let me ask you then, based not on that bill, but on the issue rather.
Should people be able to get information about the decisions that they want to make?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Okay. So if they were restricting it, and I'm not saying they are. If they were, right? Then you would not be for that.
I think that people making a profound decision should have all the information, pros and cons.
Right. Let's talk about the journey to the presidency. I've been on the Daily Show for a few years now, and there's something I've noticed, and that is when people write memoirs, it generally means that they might be eyeing a run at the presidency. So with 2024 coming up, I know you've been asked this in many, many different ways. I'm not going to ask you, would you run, would you not run? You're going to tell me, well, Trevor, right now we just got to focus on the midterms, and you're the most important thing. I know that. I get that. Right?
Actually, I wasn't going to say that.
Okay.
I was going to say that we should focus on the next Friday night like we were high school football players. But you get the point. Yeah,
right. So let me ask you this then, Robert.
Yes, sir.
What would you do differently if you were elected president of the United States? What would you do differently from a Donald Trump presidency? What would you do differently from a Joe Biden presidency? What is the difference that you would bring?
I honestly think that America is the greatest country on earth. We are the solution, not the problem. If we are going to focus our attention on making America a better country, thank all three of your people up there. I really appreciate that.
I think it's just in the moment people are struggling.
Okay,
in the moment,
yeah.
people, for whatever reason.
I see. So if I were going to set an agenda, the first thing I would do is I would focus on the poorest zip codes in this country need really high quality education.
I agree.
If that's something, so I went to 4 different elementary schools by the 4th grade. I am serious about equipping our parents with all the options they need and improving the quality of our public education, whether that's here in New York City, the Success Academy does a fantastic job, or in Charleston, we have one of the top 50 public high schools in all of the country. So there's a way for us to be able to provide great incentives for our kids to continue along the path to a better education.
Is that your way of saying privatizing education?
No,
I don't know if you're saying that or
yeah,
not.
let me say it differently.
Because this is the thing I've noticed in America, and
absolutely.
in the book, just to go back to the book, what I do like is that you talk about the impacts that education made both negatively and positively in your life, like where it impacted you. And there's something I did notice in the book is your journey cannot be separated from the journey that America had. You cannot separate it from a world where America believed in investing in America, where it wasn't those kids can choose those charter schools or those systems or those, you get what I'm saying? It seemed like you're a product of that world.
And we spend $760 billion as a country on public education, K through 12.
But teachers are still broke.
Listen, if you're, yes. So, and your point is a good one. So that in Department of Education in Washington, D.C., the average employee at the Department of Education makes over $100,000 a year, while the teacher does not. So should we take some of the money that we're spending in Washington, D.C., and give it back to the state so that they can provide more money for teachers?
Well, or you could just take it away from wars.
Yeah, that's true. But I would disagree.
You know?
Yeah. So I would say without any question, if you look at the breakdown of our budget around the country, you would see that we're spending $760 billion, $757.75 on education. We spend about $800 billion on our discretionary defense. We spend about $1.1 trillion on Social Security, about $800 billion on Medicare, about 600 or so on Medicaid. So our domestic spending rivals any other place on earth. So it's not that we can't walk and chew gum. It's not that we can't provide for the primary defense of this nation and fund education. The truth is, in South Carolina and around the country, some of the poorest performing schools have about $24,000 per student. One of the blessings of this area in New York City is the charter schools, a Success Academy, very similar to what we have in Charleston, Meeting Street Academies, where you're seeing for less than half of the current student expenditures, you can get high quality education for the average student in the average place without privatizing it. And oh, by the way, I still support all choice. I mean, whatever it takes to improve education, I'm
all
for.
Choice?
Well, not all choice.
I'm not going to clip that. I'm not going to clip that. I know where you stand. I know where you stand. Before I let you go, there is
Trevor, you're pretty good at this job.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming. I really do.
And you're discerning in your hearing, and you're directional in your questions. I like this.
I try.
I understand.
It's what I do enjoy in the book is that it reminds me that you are a human being. I don't need to agree with you on everything to believe that you are a human being. And you talk about that in the book. You talk about the way people see you, the way you see people you don't agree with. One of the more touching parts of your book is when you talk about going with your grandfather for him to vote.
Yes.
And this was for him to vote for
2008.
Yeah, 2008.
Oh, yeah.
And he was going to vote for Barack Obama.
Absolutely.
And one of the volunteers at the polling station didn't trust that you would let him vote because your grandfather couldn't read. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it's one of the most touching stories about my grandfather I could ever share. Going back to 1921, fast forward into 2008, thinking about a black man born in the Deep South with very, very few rights, if any at all. Living long enough to see this country evolve far enough for the possibility of an African American being elected President of the United States. It was something he could not comprehend or imagine. So I take him to vote, as I always have. We're walking into the voting booth, and because he can't read, I always went into the booth with him, which is the way that we do it. And the young lady at the counter didn't think me being Republican, I'm going to honor my grandfather's wishes. And I just thought to myself, how sad is it that what she thinks of the human condition is so off? But my grandfather, having 100% faith in me, said, "Lady, please and thank you. Shut up." And we went in there together.
This is my grandson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I said, "Granddad, I want you to memorize." My grandfather had almost a photographic memory.
Right.
I said, "I want you to Barack Obama. I want you to remember those words. So when you see it on TV, you know who you voted for.
I love
There will
that.
never be any question on what you did." And so he said, "Okay, Timmy." And he calls me Timmy. And so we push the button, and I said, "Okay, Granddad, I want you to hit the vote button with the big green button and vote." And walking out there, getting in the car, I've seen my grandfather cry twice. Once was when my grandmother died, April 29, 2001. And the second time was having the privilege and the responsibility of electing President Barack Obama.
It's a really, really fantastic book because I think it gives so much more complexity to who you are as a man. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Not everyone comes here and chats with me, so I always appreciate you. Thank you for coming here.
Absolutely.
Senator Scott's book, America, A Redemption Story, is available right now.